So in my last video, we went over how the Pentagon is still trying to use the old weather balloon excuse. Meanwhile, the news coming out of Capitol Hill sounds like a Marvel movie.
Grusch never said extraterrestrial or alien. He said interdimensional.
Luna would not expand when asked what interdimensional meant, whether this was something which could bend time and space.
That meeting with Representative Luna took place on January 12th in the most recent classified UAP hearing. Tim Burchett said that they got more information than they were expecting. He said on a scale of 1 to 10 of what he expected to get out of this UAP hearing, it was a 4. Jordan Clifford, who was there, said that Representative Luna talked about interdimensional beings. Representative Garcia appears shaken by what was discussed. Representative Moskowitz said this verified a lot of the claims that he had, and he was impressed with the transparency. Remember, this was a classified hearing, so transparency for them on the committee, not for us. So let's take a look at what else Representative Luna said about interdimensional beings.
Interdimensional. I mean, now, what does that term, is this something that bends time and space? What are you getting at?
I think that Grusch, when I had talked to him on whether these were specifically extraterrestrials or alien in origin, he said interdimensional. He refused to use certain terms, and I think that's incredibly important because I think that that's really the question we're all wanting to know, right? And so I'm actually going to have a sit-down conversation with him and ask him to come back and talk to us directly, because it seems that we are getting more information from the source than going into a skiff and then not being able to tell you guys what we're talking about.
Is this stuff that we just as humans might not be able to understand if it's interdimensional?
I think that we can understand it. I think that it's just, it's an approach, right? I mean, like, remember, we just now for the first time in history really had Congress have whistleblowers come forward credible that we're telling the entire world that there is something other than human life forms. Grusch said that those were interdimensional beings. He refused to use extraterrestrial and alien. I think that's important to note, but I do have to go feed my baby, so thank you.
Okay, so I want to share this document from 1947 with you. They're not excarnate Earth people, but come from their own world. They do not come from any planet, as we use the word. Instead, they come from another planet that interpenetrates with our planet and is not visible to us. Okay, and then this part gets even more interesting. The region from which they come is not the astral plane. It corresponds with the lokas and the talas, which is a concept from Hinduism for different realms of existence. These talas is actually the architecture of these realms. Okay, there's been a lot of talk about interdimensional beings lately. Newest episode of Joe Rogan, Joe interviews a religious expert, Diana Walsh-Pasolka. She goes on to say that in her religious studies, she's starting to realize that this interdimensional being might have been what has been talked about throughout all of history and all religious texts. Coincidentally, she also brought up Jacques Vallée and Alan Hynek, both of which are credited with advancing the interdimensional UFO theory. And I also wanted to add this letter that we talked about in other videos already from Gerald Light, detailing the night that Eisenhower signed the Alien Treaty. And remember, he didn't call them aliens or extraterrestrials, he called them Etherians. How the reality of other plane aeroforms is now and forever removed from the realms of speculation, and now this letter was sent to Meade Lane. And Meade Lane is another one of the people that is credited with putting this hypothesis of interdimensional beings forward.
Based on a fair amount of evidence that they're not aliens. They've always been here. And I do think it's spiritual. That's my view.
Interdimensional beings.
Right, I want to ask, are angels and demons, or how would you describe these beings?
You know,
what we're thinking of as aliens are they're extra-dimensional beings.
Okay, so was Representative Garcia actually shaken? Let's take a look at the footage.
Okay. So, I mean, does any of this go toward your conversation about trying to get this bipartisan bill? I mean, is there something that touched on this?
I mean, look, I think that the bipartisan bill came out of a discussion at a first hearing to ensure that pilots have an ability to report UAPs. There right now is no system for pilots or aviation personnel to report UAPs, whatever UAPs may be, and so the bill would actually do that. Obviously, we can't talk about the details of the briefing, but I think there was some interesting information, and so I think that this is
her phrase, interdimensional beings. Is that something that we're dealing with here potentially?
I mean, I think it's easy to be disappointed when you don't get all the information that you want, which I understand. I would have loved to receive much more information, but I think that it's reasonable to say that everyone that was in the room received probably new information. I certainly did, and think that's interesting, additional information to continue the investigation and ask more questions. So definitely have more questions than less questions.
Does that term mean anything to you?
I'm not going to get into any terms.
It's wild to believe that this is happening in our lifetime. What if we're the ones that are just a reality show on interdimensional cable?